I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6:30 PM. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Pasqua.
Here.
Councilmember LeBlanc.
Here.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Here.
Councilmember Shockley.
Here.
President Lima.
Here. Councilman Pasqua, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and share the details of the emergency evacuation plan? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
These rear doors, left and right, behind us, out the back.
Thank you. Moving on to item B2, closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1 regarding job performance of the town manager, Benjamin Marchant. Mr. Marchant was provided notice of this meeting on Friday, December 16th via hand delivery by Council Vice President James LeBlanc. Town council members were provided a copy of this notice on Friday, December 16th at 9:01 a.m. via email, including the town clerk and town solicitor. I'll now entertain a motion to enter this notice into the record here this evening.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion from Council Vice President LeBlanc. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
That's 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Mr. Marchant, you have the option to elect to have this item discussed in open public session or closed executive session. How would you like to proceed?
Open session, please.
Excuse me. Sorry. Can we have the 5 minutes for the stenographer to come in?
Yes, we'll take a brief 5-minute recess to move the stenographer.
Thank you.
Take your time, don't rush. Okay.
Oh, you're ready? So, yeah. I'll let her know.
Yep, I know. Good to go. We'll now reconvene from recess. At this time, we'll introduce resolution of the Coventry Town Council, preliminary resolution as to the town manager's suspension and removal. The resolution, whereas in the town of Coventry, Benjamin Marchant, hereinafter referred to as Marchant, is the town manager duly appointed by the town council pursuant to charter section 5.01, and Marchant is otherwise subject to the town charter. And Marchant entered into an employment agreement, hereinafter referred to as the employment agreement, with the town of Coventry, hereinafter referred to as the town or town, with an effective date of April 5th, 2021, and for a term of 39 months thereafter, terminating on June 30th, 2024. And over time and in the performance of his duties as town manager, Marchant has, 1, failed to adequately direct and supervise the administration of all departments, offices, and agencies of the town, particularly the finance department. And 2, failed to see that all laws, provisions of the town charter, and acts of the town council, subject to enforcement by the manager or officers subject to the manager's direction and supervision, are faithfully executed. And 3, failed to submit the town council complete reporting as to the town finances. And 4, failed to make such other reports as the town council may require concerning the operations of the town's departments, offices, and agencies, subject to the manager's direction and supervision. And 5, failed to keep the town council fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the town. And 6, failed to care for and preserve all town property. And 7, without prior approval of the town council, assume the duties and office of the finance director, in addition to the duties of the office of town manager. And 8, failed to cure deficiencies in the performance of his duties as town manager as brought to his attention by the town council on numerous occasions of which he is aware. And 9, exhibited a pattern of negligent performance of his duties as town manager, particularly with respect to his oversight of town finances and the finance department. And 10, has through his material actions and inaction rendered his continued employment with the town detrimental to the discipline, efficiency, and or effectiveness of town management, and which public policy recognizes as good cause for Marchant to no longer hold the position of town manager. And the town council seeks to exercise its rights pursuant to charter section 5.06 and more particularly charter section 5.06 section 1. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Honorable Town Council, 1, is suspending Marchant with pay for a period not to exceed 45 days, pending further inquiry and a final resolution of the council as to Marchant's removal. And 2, directing Marchant to cease and desist forthwith from performing any and all duties and exercising any authority as town manager, holding himself out as town manager, or in any way involving himself in or interfering with the day-to-day management activities of the town or town governance. And 3, directing Marchant to surrender immediately his town vehicle and keys, key fob thereto, credit cards, any implement of technology, including his town issued laptop, any and all access codes and passwords related to information technology and information security, including but not limited to building access codes in any computers, directories, document or file that is part of the town's information technology and information security infrastructure, any and all key or key fobs that provide physical access to any town property, including but not limited to his office space and any locked compartments therein, and any other property of the town in his possession wherever such property may be located presently. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Council Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilman Pascoe. Discussion, Councilman LeBlanc.
I have handed out a PowerPoint presentation to all members of the council, the town solicitor, and the town manager. The first slide, number 2, it says performance matters to discuss. Over time and in the performance of his duties as town manager, Mr. Marchant has failed to provide timely financial reports to the town council, failed to see that all provisions of the charter are faithfully executed, failed to meet financial reporting deadlines set by the state of Rhode Island, failed to adequately direct and supervise the administration of all departments, offices, and agencies of the town, particularly the finance department, failed to obtain proper approval from the town council for various important matters. The next couple of slides are going to detail the facts behind all of these failures. On August 23rd, 2022, Member LeBlanc had emailed former President Dixon asking and requesting when the June 30th, 2021 financial statements would be issued, finalized, and presented to the town council. At that time, 14 months had passed since the fiscal year end. The following 8 outstanding budget actual reports were asked to be prepared and provided to the town council. January 2022, February, March, April, May, June, July, and August, all of 2022. The town council had not received any of these budget actuals. That was as of August 23rd, 2022. The October 2022 budget to actual was not presented to the town council until December of 2022. The June 30th, 2021 financial statements were not provided to the town council until December 13th, 2022. The almost 18 months late. The town manager has not provided the town council with any current reporting on the sewer enterprise fund. Following facts are related to the failures to follow the charter provisions. Coventry Town Charter Section 5.04, powers and duties of the town manager, paragraph 6 states that one of the manager's duties is to submit to the town council and make available to the public a complete report on finances and administrative activities of the town as of the end of each fiscal year. We are now 5.5 months after fiscal year end. Does anyone on this town council know how much our cash and cash equivalents are as of June 30th, 2022? The answer to that question is no. How about how much debt that was outstanding as of June 30th, 2022? No. The reason is because Mr. Marchant has not provided the town council with that information. Failed to follow charter provisions continued. Coventry Town Charter Section 5.04, powers and duties of the town manager, paragraph 8 states that one of the manager's duties is to keep the town council fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the town and make such recommendations to the town council concerning the affairs of the town as the manager deems desirable. Member LeBlanc, Lima and LeBlanc had been asking for financial reports for months to no avail. As previously mentioned, there were 8 months of budget to actuals outstanding at one point in August 2022. The June 30th, 2021 financial statements took 18 months to get issued. The June 30th, 2022 financial statements will not be issued by the state of Rhode Island's legal deadline. Member LeBlanc has been asking for more than half a year for impact fee information, and the work on that report has not even been started. When was the last time we received a complete listing of future needs of our town directly from our town manager? We have not. Failed to follow charter provisions continued. Chapter 106, Building Regulations, subsection 10606, Fair Share Development Fees. Paragraph J states, after collaboration with the departments who are apportioned a share of the fees, the finance director shall present an annual report to the town council on the status of any fair share development fees collected by the town. The report shall be presented to the town council prior to the adoption of the capital improvement plan. The report shall specify the amount of the fees collected, how the monies were expended, and whether there were any anticipated expenditures in the future. On May 1st, 2022, Member LeBlanc asked the town manager when such a report would be available for the town council to review and did not receive a response from Mr. Marchant. However, former President Dixon indicated that Mr. Gorham would respond. I never received a response. On December 2nd of 2022, Member LeBlanc called Mr. Marchant and again asked for a said report on the fair share development fees, at which point he indicated, I know about it, Lisa knows about it, and it's just a question of priorities right now. She's working on getting the financials for October and November for the December 12th meeting. They are training a new payroll person and they are prepping for the 2022 audit. She wants to make sure that the 2022 audit goes without a hitch before she attacks the impact fee schedule. Member LeBlanc then asked for a draft of the schedule, at which point Mr. Marchant indicated, Lisa looked into it and such a report has not been produced in 5 years. So there is no template, no format, no approach. So it will have to be created for the first time. Please note that the residential dwelling impact fees are $5,854 per dwelling, and those fees are supposed to be allocated to the police department, school department, human services, public works, government library expansion, sewers, and other public facilities. If no one's tracking these fees, even in a preliminary schedule, where are they and who is ultimately responsible for the safekeeping? Failed to meet state reporting deadlines. Rhode Island General Law, Section 45.10.5, filing of audit report states the accountants making post-audit required by Rhode Island General Law 45.10.4 shall submit a report on their examination of the financial statements to the city or town audited, and the town or city clerk of the city or town shall file duplicate copies of the post-audit with the state director of revenue and the state auditor general, not later than 6 months after the close of the fiscal year. The June 30th, 2021 financial statements were emailed by Mr. Marchant to the town council on December 13th, 2022. Coventry was one of 2 out of 39 cities and towns that had yet to submit their financial statements to the state auditor general. Failed to adequately direct and supervise. Per an April 22nd, 2022 email from Mr. Marchant, 180 town employees went without pay in Coventry due to an error of oversight made by the payroll clerk. In September 2022, when the council had gone 8 months without budget to actual updates, Mr. Marchant was asked what his deadline was for the finance director to issue the outstanding financial reports, to which he responded, "I do not have a deadline for her." In the spring of 2022, after a settlement was approved by the town council with Coventry Fire District, a $100,000 check was dispersed by the finance department to Central Coventry Fire District in error. In July 2022, board and commission members received letters from the finance director indicating that they would be paid for delinquent amounts owed to them for January 2021, May 2021, December 2021, May 2022, and June 2022 payments. And the letter indicated, "We are very sorry for this oversight." Failed to adequately direct and supervise continued. On May 20th, 2022, Mr. Marchant emailed the town council to inform the council that 11 illicit fraudulent checks had been processed against the town's operating account. When Member LeBlanc asked if the town had set up a basic treasury safeguard known as positive pay with the bank, Mr. Marchant responded with, "It was always on the to-do list, but it hasn't happened yet." At the August 22nd, 2022 meeting, Mr. Marchant stated during public session that the town could bond $101.6 million for the new school building construction project without providing any support to the amount that he announced. Subsequent to that meeting, Member LeBlanc asked for the support, and after reviewing it for approximately 5 minutes, identified that there was a basic math computation error of $6.6 million, to which Mr. Marchant, once questioned, stated he should have checked the math first. Note that the amount available was only approximately $95 million. Failed to adequately direct and supervise continued. On September 22nd, 2022, Mr. Marchant, along with the town council, received a cease and desist letter from Silvio Napolitano, Esquire, indicating that a former employee who was terminated in March of 2022 was still listed as an active user, agent, and signatory. On October 24th, 2022, Mr. Marchant confirmed that not only was the former employee on 2 accounts identified in the cease and desist letter, but that the former employee was also listed on a 3rd, and that she had finally been removed from all 3 bank accounts. Failed to obtain town council approval. At the July 25th, 2022 meeting, there was an agenda item titled Resolution to Approve the Use of ARPA Funds for Department of Public Works Fueling Station Project in the amount of $54,000 and Diesel Emission Fluid Station of $26,000. These items were supposed to be discussed, and the town council should have had the opportunity to either approve or reject these expenses. However, Mr. Marchant stated during the meeting, and I quote, "So these upgrades, as mentioned in the memo in your packet, were due. We had to begin construction on June 15th of 2022. So that is why these projects have already been started. I authorized these projects to go forward. This potentially is yet another charter violation related to section 8.22, payments and obligations prohibited." Failed to obtain town council approval. Continued. At the October 24th, 2022 meeting, there was an agenda item titled Resolution Approving a Contract Amendment with Beta Group, Inc. for changes to the scope of work of the comprehensive plan update. The amendment was in the amount of $20,500 and was asking the council to utilize ARPA funds for payment, meaning it was not budgeted. These items were supposed to be discussed, and the council should have had the opportunity to either approve or reject these expenses. However, Mr. Durfee and Mr. Marchant indicated that the hours had already been incurred, and when Member LeBlanc specifically asked who gave the authorization prior to coming to the town council for actual approval, Mr. Durfee stated, "I'll take the credit for that. I'm guilty for that." Mr. Marchant then stated, "As the town manager at the time, it was ultimately my responsibility. I did give direction to move forward with that. I was aware of it." failed to obtain town council approval continued. Mr. Marchant bypassed the town council and added Briar Point area, a sewer project estimated cost of 3.5 million, and Coventry Drive, a sewer project with estimated cost of 950,000 to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management's priority list without asking the town council and or the sewer commission and or the sewer subcommittee to approve. And these were ultimately removed in November 2021 by the town council. Last slide. Items to evaluate in the context of an investigation. Allegations of utilizing the town vehicle for interstate personal travel, receiving non-cash compensation for, quote, watching a property and living rent-free in an apartment. If this would be considered a second job, it would also be prohibited per the town charter, section 5.02, prohibition against other employment. Number 3, interfering with council members Lima and LeBlanc attempting to post an inaugural town council meeting agenda. Council members were trying to follow the charter, which indicated first Monday following an election certification. Number 4, authorizing and utilizing additional time off over and above what was in Mr. Marchant's executed contract. And the last one, not abiding by court orders. This is related to the fair share of pilot payments to the fire districts. For all of these reasons, as well as reasons not even disclosed in the slide deck, there is no question that Mr. Marchant needs to be removed from his duties as a town manager, and a search for a new town manager needs to start immediately.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Ludwig. Councilor Ludwig.
My understanding is, I don't know if you can hear me, that this is supposed to be a participative discussion. And so you've just presented a lot of information here. I don't know how we want to proceed. It would probably be helpful to hear from Manager Marchant on your allegations, if the council would allow him to proceed. It's my understanding that we invited him to participate.
Any further discussion from council members before we go to Manager Marchant? Councilman Pasqua.
Given the information that we have here today, it is abundantly clear this council must take action, not only to protect our town, but to immediately begin the process of rebuilding it. There was a reference made that Mr. Marchant had only been with our town for a year and a half. This is correct, but make no mistake about it. He has made a career worth of errors. We cannot let this continue for 1 second more. This is a new council, and we are going to hold people accountable for their actions or lack thereof. I am confident that this investigation will prove the severe mismanagement of our town. We owe it to our town and our people and our future to do our due diligence on this issue, and we will. Today, I'm going to support the suspension and investigation of the actions or lack thereof of the Coventry Town Manager, Ben Marchant. The team is failing, you replace the coach.
Any further discussion from council members? Councilor Ludwig.
I suspect we'll have additional comment after Mr. Marchant speaks, so I'd like to indicate that is my preference.
Can we pass into the mic to her, maybe? Can't even take.
Testing. Can you hear this? I've indicated that my preference is to provide comment, possibly question after Mr. Marchant speaks. Thank you.
Mr. Marchant, do you wish to make comment, participate?
Yes, please. Well, none of the issues that were brought up tonight are new.
This is the first time they've been brought to my attention as a concern of the council as a whole. And I'm happy to discuss any of these issues at length, but I am not prepared to address every single one of them tonight. In April of 2021, I came here to work for the town of Coventry as the town manager. The town council expressed a strong desire for professional management and leadership that would embrace integrity, transparency, and accountability in government to restore the trust and confidence of the public for the town of Coventry. The town charter, section 504, charges the town manager with the responsibility to the town council for the administration of all town affairs placed in the manager's charge by and under this charter. I recognized a great opportunity where I felt I could help this community to solve some real big problems and make a real difference. What I found when I got here were many controversial and very expensive challenges: litigation over Johnson's Pond, challenges to the wind turbine developments, an underfunded police pension plan, and a very poorly run sewer program. My first and highest priority task, however, was to pass a balanced budget within 2 months, which the voters did approve on June 10th, 2021. The budget process brought to my attention many concerns about fiscal stability and long-term financial needs. The town council assigned me the task of preparing a financial health assessment, which the finance director and I presented on September 15th, 2021. The presentation highlights the town's extraordinary debts and liabilities in excess of $250 million and a net financial position at a negative $136 million. The first is more than twice the amount of the town's annual budget for both school and town, and the other is well over the combined budget of the school and town. The need to better manage the town's liabilities while also meeting its needs for infrastructure repair and maintenance and investments in operations is sobering. The town council was concerned about a lack of planning for the future, so I organized and facilitated a strategic planning session on November 13th, 2021. A strategic plan was adopted by the town council February 15th, 2022. In light of the dire financial circumstances of the town, I issued an RFP to conduct a performance audit at the council's request. I vetted the respondents and provided the town council with recommendations. The performance audit was completed and presented to the town council on May 7th, 2022. The performance audit identified 50 recommendations of improvements that needed to be made for the town, including lack of staffing in several key areas, especially in the finance department, inadequate financial services software, and many other areas requiring improvement, with a list of, like I said, 50 recommendations in all. The town council supported the creation of 3 new full-time positions for deputy finance director, assistant town manager, and town engineer, which I was able to recruit and hire along with a new director for planning and development. At my direction, departments have begun producing monthly reports for the benefit of the town council. The 2022 and 2023 budgets were passed and approved by the voters. The new Human Services and Police Station building was finally finished and the project was closed out. Policies and procedures have been established in every department to ensure consistent and accurate completion of tasks, sufficient training and cross-training, and general resiliency for continuity of operations. I also undertook the process to prepare RFPs and recommend responsive consultants to the council for a new comprehensive plan, a wastewater facility study, and most recently, a fire services study. I have also studied the feasibility for 2 school building project proposals. I have done all that I have been asked to do and more. However, the recommendations coming from all these studies indicate the work to be done and all come with the demand for resources, time, people, and money, which Coventry does not have. In all these projects, the council was made aware of issues with reports, individual conversations, and meetings in open and closed sessions. In the last evaluation session, there was a list of goals which we mutually agreed on, except for when the audit would be completed. I cited issues with the audit, and I understand and share the council's frustration. A lack of resources, incorrect data, and an application that cannot produce what the town council wants has led to delays which will continue until basic resource issues are resolved. An infusion of money is needed. I note that the town council has been slow or unwilling to make tough decisions and has tabled many important issues, including the adoption of a personnel policy manual, disposition of ARPA funds, and commitments to capital investments for street paving. Recruiting, retaining, and growing the capacity of staff is a critical need. We are losing employees to other jurisdictions because many of the positions are at below market compensation. I have proposed compensation packages to the town council to consider for the International Brotherhood of Police Officers and the Association of Federal, State, and Municipal Employees, Council 94, to responsibly improve wages so that the town can be competitive in recruiting and retaining qualified workers. I have worked closely with each department to uphold the ordinances in the town code and provide a consistent, professional, and equitable service for each applicant and patron of the town services. There is a process for development applications, plan review, preliminary plan submittals, and master plan review. There is a consistent process for collecting fees for permits, inspections, and development fees. Implementing financial controls, revenue sheets, and other protocols has facilitated better cooperation with the finance department to record revenues, track expenses, and ensure a timely and accurate process for payroll. These standards ensure that the town process will be followed and will avoid many of the problems that were created when the provisions of the codes were not always followed or enforced in the past. Notwithstanding the complaints and resistance that we have received along the way, relations between staff and the public is improving, and trust is being restored because of the efforts to have greater consistency and transparency in following the town's ordinances. I am proud to have found a way to reduce the town's police pension liabilities by over $100 million over the next 16 years and achieve a fully funded plan by 2030, 9 years ahead of the current schedule. I submitted my recommendation to the town council just last week. The town's governmental problems are complex and require more than just cuts. My leadership not only promotes, but also models positive cultural values in the organization like respect, civility, courteous service, and the recognition of positive accomplishments for a job well done. With the loss of 2 CPAs in key leadership positions, forward progress and improvement is not certain. Coventry is not the sleepy little town that some people may think it is. It has big city problems with no easy or cheap solutions. The new leadership must learn to place the public good ahead of special interests and make some hard decisions that will not necessarily please every constituent. I am grateful for the privilege of serving the town of Coventry in the capacity of town manager for the last year and a half. I am proud of all the work that has been accomplished with the staff in such a short amount of time. There were some difficult decisions that had to be made, but I can stand with honor knowing that I have done the right things and I have done what was best for the town. I look forward to continuing on this path of solving big problems for the town and making a positive difference. And I would note that every decision I have made has not been for my personal interest, but for the best interest of the tax-paying citizens of Coventry. And those that are opposed to me are really opposed to them. Thank you.
Please. Now open it back up to discussion from town council members. Councilor Ludwig.
Testing. Can you hear that?
Yes.
So Vice President LeBlanc, I appreciate that you provided us a copy of the items that you read out earlier. There's a number of items in here that I'm going to have to disagree with you on. And I find it absolutely ridiculous that you supply us with a 20-page memorandum here and then expect us to vote on something tonight. This is something that is so serious, considering that the finance director and deputy resigned last week. We are in dire straits in the finance department. And to call for this week, I am extremely displeased that you have provided this 20-page deck. I don't even know how many pages. Are we expected to go page by page and dispute items or say what we're in favor of? I mean, I'm going to give 1 or 2 examples here for the public. So firstly, on page 13, you allege failed to obtain town council approval. Marchant bypassed the town council and added Briar Point area and Coventry to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management's priority list without asking for town council or sewer subcommittee approval.
That's correct.
He didn't require the approval of the town council. That was not required. And when he let me finish, please. And when he found out that this council wanted to be included in those discussions, he turned it around and said, no problem. I understand the sensitivity of this matter and will now bring all sewer items forward. And so having this as an item saying failing to obtain the town council approval, he was not required to get approval to put us on a suggested list for possible financing. Only the council can approve streets that the sewers go down. So in my opinion, parts of this are misleading to the public about what we actually have authority over. The second item here on page 8, you list items failed to adequately direct and supervise. In July 2022, board and commissions received letters from the finance director indicating they would be paid for delinquent amounts owed between January 2021, May 21, December 21, May 22, and June 22. Mr. Marchant had only joined us, and I believe it was part-time in April. So what I'd argue here is he cleaned it up. We found a problem. We brought it to his attention. He got it cleaned up within less than a few months of being here. So my point here, I'm not going to go through this entire thing and say what I think on every single one of these points. There's some items on here that we agree, most likely. But this is not the right way to bring forward to the public all of your personal ideas. And then we have to sit here and refute items. These are just two examples of items that could be interpreted multiple different ways. And so in order to respond to every item on this 20-page list, I don't feel that that's a fruitful discussion for tonight. I'm not going to respond to that. I do have a statement I'd like to read for my personal comments. After an intense 4-month search and interview process, Mr. Marchant was unanimously chosen by the then 4 elected councilors, 3 of whom are here today. He's a professional town manager with many years of experience. When he joined this organization, I personally asked him to treat this as a $100 million business because that's the money that comes through this office. He's consistently sought feedback from the council on top priority items that go across all districts, and even held the first strategic planning session for the council, directors, and public last year. Manager Marchant has consistently engaged with the council to mobilize and author RFPs and the consultant work that 4 members of this sitting council have asked for, such as the performance audit and the starting of a new comprehensive plan, all while hiring new staff such as Director Durfee and a new full-time engineer for the town, which he approached the council and said it would be the most fiscally responsible for taxpayers. And, oh, by the way, we will get more coverage by hiring a full-time engineer, which he has done. Manager Marchant has made himself available to all 5 councilors, not just a majority, to help the issues in every district. He has engaged with the community by attending events like Coffee with a Cop, aiding Director Blumenthal in the Jim Spearman dedication events. And last year, for example, on the roadwork on 117, he showed up to my meeting with business owners and leadership from Kent County Water and D'Ambra Construction to review the traffic problems, and then went on to approve nighttime work that was needed to get the road done to lessen the impact on business and residents. In the times that Manager Marchant proceeded in an activity that the councilors were adverse to, such as what you referenced, and I talked about earlier on the submitting streets to the Rhode Island DEM, once we expressed that we wanted to be involved in those types of activities, he ensured the council was involved, so much so that he highly suggested hiring an assistant town manager, found and hired Maria Broadbent, and then assigned her specific sewer-related tasks, such as leading the program, as well as putting forward the sewer ARPA requests, which I know are very important in multiple districts. He also assigned her additional work items to help move the town forward. For example, last Thursday, we received news that Coventry is now included in only 5 municipalities across the state. We were selected to participate in the Municipal Resilience Program for water projects that have only a 25% match from the town involved. None of these things were happening before Manager Marchant started here. He's been one of the first voices for the security of the staff, both union and non-union,
at town hall and a voice for taxpayers whose feedback is that we need some type of better incoming method on town requests to get people to the right departments, with his suggestion of a new layout at town hall introduced during those ARPA discussions. And I got to tell you, I was shocked when we had that bomb threat several weeks ago. And the first thing I thought of was the security of the people in this building. Last week, our town finance director and deputy resigned. I also know of a short-term upcoming out of office needed by one of the school finance directors. Right now, the town is not in a good position to change all of the leadership at one time. It is not a smart move. Auditor General Dennis Hoyle released a memo in March of this year with recommendations on how to get out of pandemic lateness on financial reporting, on which the 2020 reporting was late, even when Marchant took office. I have seen him working towards the last few months, creating relationships, trying to work with the auditors and the new school superintendent, Cowart. And specifically in last week's town council meeting specifically said, we're working on a plan to work with the auditors in January to get something moved forward so that we can start on this process as soon as possible. He's also executed the very difficult job of getting our town personnel out of the pandemic working state and actioned items like capping the COVID overtime. And the staff impacted by some of these decisions can provide their version of the story to the public. I can only ask that the public please consider the multiple sides of the story. If you want more of the same results, with this town going through multiple managers and interim managers over the last 10 years, when either a manager doesn't do exactly what the majority wants or is not supported on the hard decisions, we will continue seeing the same results. This town needs continuity. The financial reporting problems don't go away with the removal of this manager. He's made the hard decisions when necessary, even when they are not popular. And he's moved the town forward on items that the councilors have asked for. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make it very clear to the councilors here tonight that Mr. LeBlanc's personal comments are not what's up for a vote or consideration this evening. It's only the resolution that was put before you. So I'm going to make that very clear. Mr. LeBlanc did want an opportunity to respond before I did see your hand up, Councilmember Shockley.
Okay, thank you.
There's this zone. When was the last time we as a council?
It's on.
Okay, it's on. When was the last time this council received a balance sheet? And do you know how much cash we have currently on hand? No. The last balance sheet we have is as of June 30th of 2021. So to ask us to spend money currently without knowing how much cash and cash equivalents we have, which a balance sheet would show, that's what we're being asked. Actually, the last 2 years I was being asked to do. At one point, we had 8 months worth of budget to actuals outstanding. We were flying blind. I was asking daily, weekly, monthly for these reports, and I was getting nothing. To your point about adding streets to the RIDEM list, then why did it take a town council resolution to get them off? Because Mr. Gorham said it was okay for those streets to get on without council approval, but it did take a town council resolution to get them off. So it's kind of interesting that that's what it took to get those streets off. And then to your point about January 2021, 2022, and then all 2022 payments for the boards and commissions, and they're finally getting cleaned up. The former finance director was here during that time period, okay, when it started, and it went on for a year and a half. So it took a year and a half to find the problem and fix it. That's a bit much. So those are my rebuttals.
Please. Councilmember Shockley.
Thank you. I don't have any written remarks. I kind of came in tonight just looking to listen and have an open mind. These are not things we haven't discussed before in many instances. I think some of what I want to do here is possibly put some of this back on the shoulders of this and other town councils. So there's been a lot of discussion on certain of these issues that Mr. LeBlanc presented tonight. And thank you, President Lima, for pointing out this isn't a council presentation because I wasn't aware that it was just Mr. LeBlanc. So we've talked amongst ourselves, but haven't given a lot of firm feedback to our town manager. We've asked for things. I'd like to also point out that since I've been on this council, which is approximately the same amount of time that Mr. Marchant has been here, every time you turn around, something else is on fire. And anything that was a priority gets pushed aside for a short time to make room for new priorities. So I just want to think on these things as we discuss what we may want to do as a council. Also, some of this, in many instances, existed before any of us were here. We have the hiring of the finance director who has just put in notice, was not done by this manager or this council. The fair share development fees, which we do want to and have to discuss, were lowered by a previous town manager and town council, but were voted on by us. Even though we questioned the idea, it is this council that reduced the fair share development fees. The sewer program right now is having a study done. And while much needs to be done in the areas of finance and sewer, I just want to make sure that we don't totally go with Mr. Pasqua's idea of if the team's failing, fire the coach, because sometimes you just did that. You just fired the coach. You got a new coach. They're trying to get their game plan going. How often do you keep doing that and expect the team to ever succeed? So I don't want to think about this like it's not a humongous decision and it's based on purely likability. I think we need to move forward as far as our finance department goes. Many mistakes happened. There were many issues under the team we had. A lot of oversight problems, but I did specifically ask the auditor when he was here what could be done. And part of what he said was there was a lot that needed to be cleaned up and not enough staff to do it. So let's just make sure that we're not pretending there's one problem and we're solving it tonight by removing a town manager, that we really make sure that this is the solution to the problem and not the creation of a new one.
Any further council member discussion? Councilor Ludwig.
My understanding of the charter section 5.06 on the removal, the council may remove the town manager from office in accordance with the following procedures. And under item 1, it says, the town council shall adopt by affirmative vote of majority of all its members a preliminary resolution which must state the reasons for removal. I don't see a resolution, a vote on a resolution on the agenda. I had never seen a copy of a possible resolution until you just handed one out. I am not clear on how we can then go take a vote on a resolution that was not included in the agenda. I don't know if the solicitor can help us understand here, but this is confusing to me as to the process we're following.
We'll defer to Solicitor Angel.
Sure. This is an unusual process in the sense that this is essentially a personnel action. In the context of a personnel action against the town administrator, section 5.06 of the charter requires the introduction of a preliminary resolution for discussion. That was my understanding to be done in executive session. As it is an employment action, it is not something that would ordinarily be published on an agenda because you don't know in advance whether the employee will wish to have this discussed in public. This employee has decided to have this discussed in public, which is the only reason why this preliminary resolution is in the public. It is entitled Preliminary Resolution as to the Town Manager's Suspension and Removal. This resolution does not call for his removal. This resolution calls for suspension with pay, which is required by the charter, subject to an evaluation of the allegations made. This is a list of the allegations. This is what is required by the charter. And this is a preliminary step. It is not a final step. not a final step by any means, but that's why the agenda was structured the way that it is. You cannot expose reasons for suspension, removal, termination as a matter of an employment matter and expose that in the public. It wouldn't fly in private enterprise, and it doesn't fly in the public realm either. But the charter yet requires a preliminary explanation of just what the allegations of removal could be. And that's what this does. This is something that would have been, and you can see that the draft of this is labeled confidential draft for that very reason. That's what the leadership of this council wanted to do. And so we have positioned it legally in the proper form. With that said, however, it is Mr. Marchant's election to have this discussion in public. Unlike other public meeting items, as this is an employment action, I do not recommend comment from the public tonight. This is not a public commentable item any more than the public would have the ability to comment on any other employee who is otherwise disciplined or suspended or removed in some fashion. So this is a rare animal in the sense that he is the town manager and he is an employee of the council. And the council is seeking to take or considering to take action by introducing a preliminary resolution that essentially suspends the town manager while these allegations are evaluated with an eye toward a final resolution as to his removal. And this is part of that. This is part of the process.
Angel, can you please confirm, did you aid in the authoring of this preliminary resolution?
I was asked to draft a resolution based on the allegations that had been made and in conformance with the contract, in my review of the contract and in conformance with the charter.
I just don't see how having the town council appointed lawyer, how does that not violate some sort of ethics agreement or OMA? If you're,
it doesn't violate those things. Listen, we're not going to have a debate about the law on the floor of this council. Okay. We're just not.
I'm entitled to ask questions and I'd like you to answer.
I didn't say that you weren't, and I'm trying to give you the answer. You don't like the answer, but I'm trying to give it to you. The reality is I represent every department in this town, including the town council. And this is an action that I was told was going to be put on the agenda for discussion. And in the context of shaping that action, it is the solicitor's office job to write resolutions and ordinances for consideration by this council. And that is precisely what I did. I have no opinion, political or otherwise, with respect to this resolution. I'm here to practice law, which is black and white. That does not represent any political affiliation or idea or policy whatsoever. That is what I'm here for, and that I was asked to do, and that is what I have done.
Thank you. I will state for the record, excuse me.
Please.
I will state for the record, I do not agree with not having any type of even mention of a resolution on the agenda. This does not feel appropriate to just have a random votes possibly to be taken type of agenda and not even know what we're coming in to specifically vote on. I had to guess, considering the other agenda items that were listed after this. Thank you.
Any further council discussion? Councilmember Shockley.
So my new mantra is just to what end? So whatever decision I try to make or whatever I try to do, I try to think of what the end game is. So I do want to ask, how do we see it as beneficial? Two things, actually. What is the investigation that we're planning on conducting to come to this final resolution? And also, what do we see as the positive of suspending Mr. Marchant during that and bringing in possibly a new interim town manager? I don't think any of what, are we afraid that information's going to be stolen. Because it seems like if at the end of that 45 days, we decide to keep Mr. Marchant, and then we have no finance director, no deputy finance director, no town manager who's been here for longer than 45 days. Is that beneficial? Is that the best way to move forward right now as we go into our budget season and have a lot of important decisions to make concerning the overall budget for the town, whether or not we want to move forward with a school bond, how we want to move forward with our fire study, which we just have asked for an RFP for. We're in the middle of a lot of things right now. This isn't in a vacuum decision. And I just want to make sure that what is being resolved on this is really what would be the best way to move forward over the next month and a half for the town of Coventry.
Any further discussion from council members? I'm just going to pass the gavel to Mr. Blank. Just briefly this evening, I just want to comment that the issues that we've seen, the negligence and the inability to abide by state and local law, the inability to accomplish basic asks that are outlined in the charter for the town manager. This is not normal. This is not just a town that's experiencing a couple hiccups in the road. I don't know how else to share that or impress that upon my fellow members of the council. This is 5-alarm fire. And I don't know how else to nail that point home. It shouldn't be a miracle that basic things get done, like getting a Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank grant or getting this or successfully moving through a contract or having a nice meeting with the school department. Those shouldn't be miracles. Those shouldn't be things that we're congratulating. And it shouldn't just be something that we applaud because it didn't happen before. We should expect better. Coventry should expect better. Coventry deserves better. Please, please, please. We can't afford to waste any more time waiting. Constantly, I've asked in public session, when is enough enough? How long am I expected to hear things like, we're working on it, we're going to get it done? This town is a mess. We have to figure, it's going to take as long as it's going to take. How long am I expected to continue to just hear that response? We've had an executive session item about the town manager's performance and evaluation of his performance 8 times since April. 2 of them were postponed or tabled due to a long agenda, but 8 times we've had discussions. I can't remember any time or know of any other instance where there were more than half a dozen times where the manager's performance or CEO of other municipality was discussed that frequently in executive session. I don't know how else to get across that what's happening here is not okay and it's not normal and it's not something we should just accept and hope that it gets better. Yes, we have vacancies now in our finance department and we have a potential vacancy coming at our administrator position. But just because we're going to have vacancies, that's not a good enough reason, given all of the issues that have been listed here tonight. That does not vacate those issues. So I just, again, want to reiterate our discussion here tonight pertains to the resolution. And finally, I know I've just said it multiple times. What is happening here is not normal. These are not hiccups, and these are not just bumps in the road. These are serious issues that shouldn't take this long to solve, and it should take more proactiveness. And we shouldn't have to tell our town manager that we don't like these things or we want these things solved. Thank you. Any further discussion, Mr. Marchant? Any further comments on the resolution? Councilman Pasqua.
So I'm in a unique position. I'm the newly elected person in the council, but what's sort of different with me than everybody else up here is that over the last few months, I have been going through this, at least District 1, and also meeting with people from other districts in this town. And a lot of them have reiterated a common theme. And their theme is that they are not happy with the way the town is being run. At one point during my campaign, I put out a poll and I got a huge response out of it. Actually, I got something like 1,000 people.
Mr. Pasqua, if I can interrupt you for a moment. The discussion is on the resolution. It's related to the resolution. We need to stick to that. So anything you have to say, your comments must be related to what is in the resolution.
They are.
Okay.
So to kind of get to the point, I met with people who work for the town, people who've lived in this town, people who pay attention, and they have all, many of them, complained about a lot of the things that are in this resolution, and they have expressed deep concern. And I have experience with other agencies in the town, and a lot of employees in this town have come to me and explained some of the things that we're seeing in this resolution. I can tell you from experience that in the fire department side, when we had issues, the employees knew better about what was going on than the public did. And in this situation, I feel it's the same thing here. I'm going to support this, and I believe what's in this resolution is accurate. A lot of people have opened up to me and reiterated these things over and over again. I'm going to support this.
Any further discussion by council members? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
No.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative and 1 in the negative.
Please, I want to be very clear. That's nothing to applaud about. This is a dark day for Coventry and it's time to move forward, but we are better than that to applaud someone moving on. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you. I now,
Can I ask a quick question? The vote's already been taken and I understand that. But when a council member in certain instances brings up a point, and I like to think I brought up some valid points, can they be discussed amongst the council?
If I may. The Councilmember Shockley, this is a preliminary resolution. This is not a dismissal. This is a suspension while these allegations are being evaluated. And the council will convene again, either an executive session or open session at the election of Mr. Marchant to further discuss these after some meat is put on the bones with respect to the allegations.
But similar to your hiring, sir, we decided that we would discuss what was being done after a decision had been made on what was going to be done. And I don't know that that's the way this council wants to continue moving forward.
moving forward, if council members do have a question that's not within discussion realm, if we can just use point of information, point of inquiry to do that, that would be great. Thank you. I'll now like to entertain a motion to authorize the town solicitor to conduct the investigation as outlined in the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
No.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative.
I think we should take a brief recess.
We're now going to take a brief recess. We've got to do some movement and the school committee needs to come up for the next agenda item.
We're going to pause because we need to do some things related to this.
And do some things related to
Wait,
the
point of
resolution.
information, Council President. What happened to the appointment of interim town manager? Votes may be taken.
Are we tabling that? Do we want to go to that one?
As I understand it, that's the next agenda item.
Just mentioned this.
Sorry, we won't bring up the school committee, but we do need a recess at this point.
We need a recess to execute the last part of this resolution so that we can carry forth on the last paragraph in the resolution with respect to Mr. Marchant. And that's not an item that should occur in public.
We're going to go to a 10-minute recess. Thank you. Now reconvene in public session. Moving on to item B3, appointment of interim town manager. Do I have a motion to make an appointment?
I would like to make a motion to appoint an interim town manager with consideration of Mr. Edward Wazika. I actually have a resume to pass out. This is not for to share after, but it's just for all members of the council to have.
So,
Yep.
it's a personnel matter, so it's not something to be shared with the public.
I have a motion from Vice President LeBlanc. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Shockley.
So while I appreciated the time that Mr. Wazika was here, as I mentioned during the conversation we were having earlier with the town manager, it was when Mr. Wazika was here that Ms. Mills was hired, that we lowered the fair share development fees, that many issues happened with the sewer program. Why have we decided this is a better alternative?
Vice President LeBlanc.
When Mr. Wazika was the interim town manager, he wore many hats. He was the IT director. He was also the interim town manager. And yet we still got financial reporting on a monthly basis. We still knew what cash and cash equivalents was. He was still able to issue the financial statements on time within the Rhode Island general law. So he is somebody who can come into this town. He already has existing relationships. He can be effective day one. He doesn't have to wait 3 months to learn the system, learn who everybody is. And that's exactly what we need.
Further discussion? Councilman Pasqua.
In this situation, I think there's really, one obvious option. It's the person who's done the job, who can step in and knows significant amount of aspects of this. And a lot of the failures that we talked about earlier, they seem to have happened after Wazika. They were not during this time. So I think that in this situation, there's really, to me, it makes complete sense to put somebody in that position who can just walk in the door and continue working, knows where to look, and doesn't need any type of orientation or training.
Councilor Ludwig.
I am disheartened by the lack of transparency for this agenda item. The fact that there's no name listed here, similar to several weeks ago when a new solicitor was suggested. We have to list the names of boards and committee members for these positions, yet someone who's about to take a salary after the vote of this council was not even listed on the agenda. In our search and attempt at trying to provide public transparency, I don't know why this continues happening, especially because it's someone who's been here before. Now that we know the name, why would that have been a secret? Why did it have to be a secret? I have no issues with Mr. Wazika. I had a great relationship with him. I was on sewer subcommittee for several years and talked with him about ideas. He helped people across all 5 districts. I have no problems with Mr. Wazika. Why couldn't we list his name on the agenda? This was listed Thursday night as interim town manager. And then that basically leaves us approximately 2 to 3 days to scramble over almost a holiday weekend to try and find someone on my side. I wouldn't do that. I would ask the council to please consider putting some names forward, to have a process that we would at least have some names put forward by everyone, or some sort of process to discuss in some manner. But this keeps happening. And it is clear that there's some sort of majority that exists here that just wants to pound through these names and not discuss anything. And I think that's wrong. And it is not transparent to the public. Mr. Wazika, in light of the earlier vote that was taken, I was outvoted 4-1. I'm very disappointed in that. However, I do have what I consider a good working relationship with you. I don't have any issues with this candidate. I just would have liked to have some sort of discussion in case there was someone else we might have wanted to consider. We had an extensive search period approximately 2 years ago, and there were a few candidates that we might have considered to come in, but we're not afforded that right. And now if we don't appoint anyone tonight, now we're in dire straits.
Yeah.
Just want to point out the reason that there's no name listed is because it's the opportunity for a discussion. There's no one who is specifically going to be appointed tonight. I mean, anyone could have brought forward a name as you talked about. So
President Lima, I just have to say though, we were only made aware of this agenda item on Thursday night when the agenda got posted. So if you're expecting me to believe that you didn't have this candidate in mind and talked about before then, and you had the opportunity to do that, then I think you are mistaken, or maybe I'm mistaken, but that doesn't seem right to me to have to scramble over a weekend to find a candidate. That doesn't seem like what happened here. Thank you.
any further council member discussion? Councilmember Shockley?
I'd also like to point out that once I got this agenda on Thursday, I did reach out to the solicitor and members of council to ask for the resume of whoever they had planned on putting forward, and was sent nothing, received no response. So I understand the logic of Mr. Warzika coming in for the 45-day period. But like Ms. Ludwig, it would have been nice to be able to have this candidate in mind. And if we were going to do something like we did tonight, maybe a little more heads up so that more people could be involved in the process on this council, because it only takes 3 votes to get something through. And if you have those 3 votes set before you get to the meeting, then I'm really wasting my time here.
If I may.
Solicitor Angel.
As a point of clarification, Member Shockley, I did respond to your email, and I indicated in my response that I did not know who the candidate was, nor did I have a resume. So I did send that response to you.
That is true, and I apologize. No one from the council replied.
Any further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councilmember Lima.
Yes.
That's 5 in the affirmative.
If I may, is this interim manager to be an employee of the town, an independent contractor? Are we authorizing contractual terms to be drafted around this? What are the parameters?
Vice President LeBlanc?
He would be an employee of the town. At least that is my suggestion. It's up for town council debate.
Councilmember Shockley?
Would it make more sense to have him be a contractor for the town because of the 45-day process, to not make him a full employee, have to do benefits or waive benefits?
Yes, I believe that is the more prudent course, because when you're an employee of the town, you have rights to things like healthcare, you have rights to participating in 401k, pension, all of the incidences of employment, just to be clear. So,
Vice President LeBlanc?
Just to be clear, it's my understanding that we can draft up a contract, and that contract can say that he's an employee, but he waives X, Y, and Z, like health insurance, the 401k, and going down the independent contractor route, he would get paid the full amount. He would get a 1099 at the end of the year, and there's additional reporting requirements. If he's here for the 45 days, if he's here longer than the 45 days, it would be my preference that we draft up a contract for him to, or if it's Mr. Warzika, for him to sign, and we as the council can tell him what benefits he is getting. But I still believe that he should be a W-2 employee.
Should we have a motion second on the floor before continuing any discussion?
you folks need to decide what you want to do.
Counselor Ludwig.
I would be agreeable to the terms you just outlined. That seems fine to me, as long as it's in a contract of some form.
I'll make a motion that the town council creates a contract for Mr. Wazika. He's a W-2 employee, and I would suggest that the draft contract says that he is not eligible for health insurance and not eligible for 401k, not eligible for the town car. He will need the cell phone. Just need a second.
Vice President LeBlanc has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Counselor Ludwig. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President Blank,
Yes.
and President Lima.
Yes. Five in the affirmative, zero in the negative. Motion carries. All right. Third time's a charm. We're going to just take a few moments to,
Actually, before
sorry.
we go there.
Yep.
We haven't discussed compensation. I think that also needs to be part of what we just, so I'd like to make an amendment if I can. It should be what the town manager was making, just paid weekly. So the town manager was getting paid $150,000. Take that 150,000 divided by 52 weeks. That's what he's going to get per week for as long as he's here.
I'll second that motion. I had just assumed that's what we would be doing. So yes, that's fine.
motion by Vice President LeBlanc to pay the interim town manager the salary commensurate with what the town manager position is paid, the weekly pay. Second by Counselor Ludwig. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Thank you. Now we're going to take a few moments to bring up the school committee. Moving on to item C1, Joint Town Council and School Committee meeting pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 16-2-21.2. The council and school committee will convene in a joint session for purposes of reviewing revenue and expense projections and to discuss issues affecting the preparation of the school budget. Votes may be taken. Chairman Pearson, would you like to call your meeting to order?
Call to order this meeting of the Coventry School Committee at 8:05 p.m. Going to do the roll call of members present. Bradford Mayor. Here. John Cambio. Here. David Florio and Anna Isabel Dos Reis Couto are not present. I am here. Don Cowart. Here. Excellent. And Harold Sands. Here. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know who wants to begin. I don't know if, Mr. Cowart, begin.
So one of the things we do every single year is we do a 3-year budget projection. And we did this for the school committee in our first November meeting. I think it was November 10th. And we brought it to the committee, and it's an exercise in us looking at where we are currently and then making some projections based on some known and some unknown factors on where we would be in the next 3 years following. And in the sheet that I think Mr. Pearson has passed down the line has it broken into 2 different parts. On the top part is our revenue, which points out our local appropriation, our state aid, tuitions, Medicaid, cell tower, and other revenue sources. And then on the bottom section are the expenditures, which calls out the salaries and benefits, purchase services, supplies, materials, furniture, equipment, fees and dues, and other expenses that we have on the school side. And then if you just go across, you can see that we basically use a percentage to come up with the figures based on, like I said, some known and some unknown factors. Typically we end up landing at a 3% increase, but then we adjust up or down based on what's happened or what's going to happen. So for example, if I'll use technology, I think as an example. So this year we bought Chromebooks using federal funds that were made available to us. In other years, Chromebooks would have been purchased by the school department. Going back a number of years, they were actually specifically funded by the town council in a separate sort of line where we were given permission to buy the Chromebooks and become a 101 district. So because we purchased them with federal dollars, we see them as not having a huge impact in this year, but in 3 years when they fall off and we have to buy new Chromebooks, that expense is going to land back on our books because the federal dollars are going to be gone. So we try to make adjustments with that. We look at inflation. We look at staffing. We have some positions this year that we paid out through COVID funds. And if those positions stay on, they'll end up being shifted to local. And if we decide to take them out, then obviously they would fall off. So that's the basic premise on how we build this out. I will say it's a good exercise. It's a nice opportunity to review where we're at, but it really doesn't reflect everything that's happening on a year-over-year basis, because we really have a lot of, and I'm actually going to talk about it if it's okay. We have a lot of things that are unknown. And so it's hard to make adjustments and calculations and predictions on when you have a lot of unknown factors. I can go into my list unless somebody has a question.
Does anyone have any questions from the town council before Superintendent Cowart moves on?
And this was based on our information. We don't have any town revenue predictions or calculations. This is just based on what we have on our side. So here are some positives, some things that I think are worth calling out. We use some of our federal dollars to purchase minivans, and we have one that's on order, should be delivered hopefully soon. And then we're in a process of looking at getting another one. The benefit of the minivan is that we can use it in town, but we can use it also to transport students who right now take statewide transportation, which we pay the Department of Ed for. We have one student who rides in from one community by himself on a bus because of where he lives and based on the fact that he's attending school here. And I want to say it's approximately like $20,000 a month for one student to come in on one bus, where we can use our minivan, hire our own driver, and go get that student and come back and in less than 2 years' time, pay for the vehicle. So that's a positive. Curriculum, where there's a lot of laws. General Assembly passed a number of laws about high quality curriculum materials. And so we use our COVID money to purchase new curriculum, but we also purchase 5 years worth of materials. So we wouldn't have to have that consumable cost that happens year over year over year. So that's an example on our spreadsheet where a materials cost might be a little bit lower, but then after the 5th year, that falls back on our books because we pre-purchased, but then eventually we're going to own that purchase going forward. We're starting at zero with school lunch. Typically there's a school lunch deficit, and that's something that we're carrying forward because of everybody having access to free lunch. The deficit basically went away. So we're struggling to get people to participate in the lunch program as we always do, but at least we're starting even versus starting with a deficit. And then the other thing, which I mentioned when we did our building committee presentation, is just there's a number of grant funds coming our way. Some are definitely coming our way and some we're very hopeful. And I'm just going to repeat them because I think they're worth repeating. $140,000 in arts grants, an equity initiative grant that it's a competitive grant that we have $5 million worth of improvements to the high school built into, a technology and furniture fund, which is $428,000. And then a new one, which is sort of hot off the presses, is that every district that has a culinary arts program is going to get a food truck from Department of Ed. That's hot off the presses. So the food truck is valued at $125,000. The state is purchasing, I think it's 8 or 9 food trucks for all the different culinary programs, with a few expectations that we will participate in some statewide events. So an example would be when they do water fire, typically for the educator water fire event, they get catered by all the CTE's culinary programs. This next water fire next September, they're hoping to have it be a food truck event where you would literally see 10 food trucks going down the road, hopefully all selling different things. And people would have access, and Coventry would have one of those. The exciting thing, if I can kind of go on a rant a little bit, the exciting thing is that we get to design it completely. We get to design the colors, we get to design what's inside, we get to design all of it. So if our food product is something that requires friolators, then we design our food truck so it has friolators. If our food truck is something that's selling something that requires a flat top grill, then we design it so it has a flat top grill. So we're going to be able to really customize it. And so we're going to integrate all our CTE programming into it. We have business going to be involved. We're going to have our design and marketing program involved. We're going to get welding and automotive involved. So it's really going to be cross-curricular. And I know that's not budget in the sense of, nickels and dimes, but it is budget in the sense of I see a big bang for the buck in investment for our kids to have opportunities to learn about an up and coming part of the food industry with the food trucks. So here's some unknowns. Every year, state aid is an unknown. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. This last year, we thought we were basically flat until the very end, and then we ended up in the positive. And we had $900,000 that we earmarked specifically for safety. And we used that money to purchase doors. Matter of fact, if you go by Black Rock School, they have brand new doors in the front of the school because the old doors weren't safe. They were rusty, but the latches weren't, to the quality that we like for a school. Staffing, there's some unknown with staffing. We need to make some decisions. We did hire some staff using COVID funds. If we have enough COVID funds left over, we could consider keeping some or all of them on for one more year. But we really need to look at sort of the return on the investment. Have our students grown? Have they recouped? Have we seen the academic progress we hope to have seen with hiring interventionists to, support them in reading and math? This teacher retirements. Last year we had a number of teachers retire, and the gain with that is, a teacher who retires is typically a top step teacher with lots of additional stipends, and a teacher that we hire. We use step 5 as our average because we need to have some number to calculate where they're coming in at for budgetary purposes. But in some of those positions, they come in at step 1 and step 2, which means different healthcare and different salary. So that's an unknown. And then enrollment. Our enrollment fluctuates a little bit. Last year, we closed a few kindergarten classrooms due to low enrollment. And then in the summer, we brought, I think, all of them back because our numbers went up. The year before that, we closed a few classrooms and the numbers didn't go back up. So those classes stayed closed. So we use enrollment figures to make decisions about what we're running at the high school, at the middle school, and then for class size at the elementary. Contract negotiations are coming up. This current contract runs out in August. This year, the teachers are at 2.25%. And so we have calculated that as being the number, but we haven't entered into negotiations yet. So I really can't tell you where we're going to end up with that. Repairs and maintenance. We have a pretty extensive list of capital improvements. When you see our final budget, it's going to be part of the budget document, and it's going to show you our priority list of what we think is urgent and what we think is, desirable and needed. We also have our maintenance requirement that we're going to have to decide how we want to handle that. When we were working on the last school bond project, one of the things we had talked about is possibly tucking that maintenance requirement into the bond, which would cover the cost. The project would cover the cost of the maintenance. If we decide not to do that, then we just have to figure out how we're going to budget that. This last year, we got the funds from the town, about $700,000, but $655,000 of that, it goes to our maintenance workers. Their salaries are covered under the maintenance requirement. And then there's emergencies. A perfect example is we had 2 heat pumps at the high school just die. They literally water pouring out of them. Each one of them was it a 22? Yeah, each one of them was $22,000. So we had an emergency school committee meeting. We had to get them purchased immediately. That happens every year. There's always something that we have to address. And then the last one is, and I put it last because I think it's pretty important. It's a school construction bond. We're doing a lot of work. A lot of things are tucked into that bond. If the bond goes forward and everything goes the way that we hope it goes, there are 3 big items that would be part of that bond. But if for some reason it doesn't go forward the way we're hoping it goes, or if something else happens, these 3 items need to be addressed no matter what. One is the roof at Allen Sean Feinstein Middle School. It's about $2.5 million. That roof doesn't even have 2 years of life on it. The only good thing about that roof right now is that it was built over an old roof, which most people would say, well, that's a terrible thing, but it's actually the only good thing that's happening because the water is not seeping straight through. It's dissipating because there's a second roof in between, but it does create a vapor barrier, which causes mold and some of the other things that we're dealing with. The high school sprinklers, our high school, we had the state fire marshal come through, and about 70% of the high school has sprinklers, but the rest of it doesn't. And so we have to make a big investment in either sprinklers or a lot of other remedial workarounds, like windows that come out and special doors. There's a lot of things you can do if you don't want to use sprinklers, but at the end, you're better off just doing sprinklers. It's the safest way to go. High school sprinklers would come in about $3.5 million. And then anybody who's been in the town for some time knows that the well at Western Coventry is not in good shape and needs to be done. I have it at 1.5. That number could be adjusted. We actually have Russ reaching out and getting a good estimate on that job. The reason why it's so high is it's not just the digging of the well itself, but it's also replacing the tank and all the pipes that run throughout the building. The tank is a steel tank, I think, and it causes discoloration. So we can replace the well, but if we don't replace the tank and the pipes, we're still going to have water discoloration. The water will be clean coming into the tanks, but it won't be clean coming out of the water fountain or the sinks. So those are the bond things that we hope to be part of the school construction bond. And that's one big vote that allows us to address these 3 big issues among, the fewer and newer and some other needs at the other schools. If that bond doesn't happen for whatever reason, those 3 items still need to be addressed at some point, some way, somehow. I didn't go any further than that because we still are doing a lot of budget work. The way we do our budget is Harold and his team meets with every department. When I say department, I mean the building principals at each school, plus every single department director. And they go over their budget based on what they've done in the past, what they need, what they don't need. And then they build their budget out. And then our executive team goes through that budget and makes other decisions based on where we want to invest the funds and where we can possibly make some cuts. Then we did this last year and it was a good exercise and we would do it again this year, is we did a line by line review of all our expenses. So we could see over the last number of years, what was allocated in a line, what was spent. If it hasn't been spent, is there a reason why it hasn't been spent? Is it something that should be taken out, moved someplace else? When you have UCOA literally has thousands and thousands of lines. And so sometimes you have two different lines that go towards the same thing. And you'll realize one line is sitting and nothing's getting pulled out of it. And another line is sitting someplace else and everything's getting pulled out of it. So sometimes we consolidate and sometimes we eliminate. So last year we found about $300,000 in savings by just going through our expenses and going line by line and identifying what could be taken out and moved around.
Thank you, Superintendent Cowart. Any members of the town council have comments or questions? Vice President LeBlanc.
Thank you very much for all that information. Just a couple questions. Former Superintendent Levis had mentioned required security improvements. Is that factored into this budget right now?
So the $900,000 that we got in state aid, sort of after the fact when it got increased, those are the funds that we dedicated to that. So that's doors and cameras. With supply chain issues, we haven't been able to get everything, but we have estimates for all the work, and the doors have started to come in. So we're replacing them as they come in. I think Western is next on the list. And then the cameras is not just getting the cameras, it's the wiring and then getting the contractors to come and run them. The high school was redone a few years ago. The middle school was done last year. And so the elementary schools all going to be addressed next. And with the school construction bond, one of the things we're also considering is if we're looking at newer and fewer, if we do that work in those schools, what can we take and move to a new school? Because we don't want to spend a significant amount of money in one place and then have to abandon all that equipment. We would lose we would definitely lose in terms of the manpower, the cost of installation, but could we take the hardware with us and the cameras with us?
Appreciate that insight. I do know, going through this process a few times now, that you are able to get updated state aid numbers. When's the next time that you might get a revised estimate?
Yeah, so Harold and I were talking about that today. He said we should probably get something once the governor does the budget for the state, and that's, I think, January-ish, February, he'll do his budget, and then typically we'll get an update. And then there's a March pull, and the March pull usually also includes their calculation for free and reduced lunch, because they'll update that calculation because some of our state aid is directly tied to that.
Appreciate that. Last question. Do you guys have any remaining ARPA funds? And if so, what's the dollar amount?
We do. I can't give you that to the penny, but we have 2 million something remaining unspent out of, what was the original? Out of 7.5 million. Most of it's been spent. Some of the money was budgeted, but not spent for a variety of reasons. So it's kind of been left. For example, some of it was manpower. We put into our budget, we wanted to, fill certain positions, but then never could fill those positions. We had put into original budget that was approved a modular at Western, which was $130,000, but then we decided it wasn't feasible. So that wasn't spent. So we have about, 2 million plus available to us.
Appreciate that. And not a question, just a request for consideration. When we're talking about the budget, if we could just make sure that we have enrollment figures, updated ones, I would just appreciate it.
Yeah, so that's actually great news. We just got the NESDEC report for where we're at and the projection like last week.
Great.
So in our new, we're going to do the budget a little bit differently this year, and I hope I did a preview for the school committee, but I haven't done anything with the town yet. But we're building a document that is sort of like an annual report / budget, and so it has a lot of backup information already built into it. So it's not going to just be spreadsheets. It's going to have a lot of the things that people ask for year over year just built into it up front, so we don't have to constantly try to find things for you after the fact. So it has enrollment, it has per pupil expenditures, it has UCOA information, all kinds of things that I think people in the town council, people in the community, I think will find useful.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Any other questions? Councilmember Shockley.
Thank you for your explanation tonight. I just have a couple questions just to clarify, because I think you've already mentioned this. When you look at the state aid, which is our second largest revenue source for the schools, you're making assumptions that it's going to be 2%.
Right. But we know, we don't know. Right.
100%. It was an increase.
We have to put something there.
It was an increase of 3.76 for this fiscal year. You're assuming a 2% increase for the next few years. So just in case we publish this, I just want to make sure we're being clear. And then just something that you said made me think, in your budget, do you have a contingency fund?
There's not really a contingency fund per se, because the way our budget, and Harold can jump in because I'm not the finance expert, but we're not really allowed to have extra dollars sitting there. We're supposed to build our budget and spend the money that it's been allocated to us. So we can't squirrel away, money and say, well, this is our rainy day fund, so much. We do have at the end of the year unspent dollars, and sometimes those dollars are used to help us start up the following year, because at the end of a school year, things come due in terms of new subscriptions or things that we need to purchase. But we don't really have a contingency fund.
I was just thinking when you mentioned that there's really every year something you didn't plan for. So not a contingency fund to be for a rainy day, but to be utilized in that fiscal year.
Right. And so that's why you're going to hear me say many, many times how important this building project is to us, because if we're able to do a consolidation and get 2 or maybe 3, because now our building committee is looking at maybe getting 3 buildings into one with some new information from the state, we might be able to make that happen. That eliminates 3 places, 3 old buildings that have issues. And those are 3 less places we have to worry about some emergency happening that we were not expecting.
Councilor Ludwig.
Thank you, Superintendent Cowart, for being here. I just wanted to ask 2 things. So it's a little bit on the back of the 900K for the safety items. So thankfully we haven't, or at least I haven't heard about any recent safety issues, things like that. But just in a past few experiences and some of the nationwide tragedies, in the moment, people become very emotionally charged and want to know what's going on, et cetera. So I'm just wondering if there's any type of communication efforts that you're doing at schools or with parents on, what types of safety initiatives that you're putting into different schools, or if some of that is sensitive, I understand, maybe we can talk offline, but I think that would be helpful. I do have children at Washington Oak, so I know that is a topic that interests people in my district.
Yep.
The second thing was, and you don't have to answer anything right now. I know it's starting to get late, and I need to get home for babysitter too. So, COVID learning loss, you mentioned that earlier. That is absolutely a thing. We're seeing it in test results. I'm seeing it in my own house. I'm very concerned about it. This is something that affects, it's not just a Coventry thing. This is across the nation. So I would be interested in hearing more about how we're addressing that and how the new curriculum may be aiding that or something to that effect.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example without getting too long-winded. We are using Zern at the elementary level. It's a new math program. And almost immediately on our STAR scores, which we do 3 times a year, it's like a benchmark test to see where our kids are at. We saw immediate impact. And even on our RICAS, our math scores increase more significantly than our reading scores. And it's not always like that. Reading sometimes goes up faster than math. So we were excited with some of the results with that. Reading is going to take a little bit longer because the curriculum that we purchased, EL, which is being implemented at elementary and middle, has many more components. So it requires a lot more PD. So it's a little bit slower to get implemented. But we have new curriculum happening at the middle school, at the elementary, middle school, and the high school, middle school and the high school. So Mrs. Anzalone, who's our curriculum director, really has her hands full with curriculum implementation. So that first part of it is hard, and then you start reaping the rewards afterwards.
Okay. Thank you. And just in light of tonight's earlier agenda items, I would ask that the interim town manager very quickly start taking a look at some of this and for you to work together on,
absolutely.
on a plan. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Just to follow comment on Member Shockley's comment on the contingency fund. I know you guys aren't allowed to have one, but Mr. Wazika, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago in the CIP fund, didn't we allocate like 200K earmarked for the school only? And correct me if I'm wrong here, we can do that, and that's not part of MOE.
Right. First year that we implemented that, we dedicated it to the school department, and the town was supposed to get the second year. I don't believe that second year got funded, but the funding was, and I believe the schools did send it, and it is. It was not part of MOE, and we were able to do it that way.
The town council just might want to consider that because Mr. Coward did say that they always kind of have expenses that aren't budgeted, and we just might want to consider that. Thanks.
One of the things that we're pretty excited about this year, because we typically don't get capital, is, with the maintenance requirement, when you took out what was required for what we use for maintenance, we still had about $700,000 available to us for some capital improvements. And we have a capital list that's pretty extensive. So we've already sat down and gone through it, and we have at least one big ticket item that we're probably going to be able to take right off that list with that maintenance requirement funding. So if we can get one big thing off the list, that I'm going to feel pretty good about that, because for many years, nothing came off the list, which is why we are where we are with our buildings.
Any further discussion from members of the town council? Chairman Pearson.
Any comments or questions from members of the school committee?
No comment. Not at this time.
I have no real questions. I do have a question for the town side, and in light of today's events, I don't expect an answer, so I'll just point it out. Part of this meeting is also to look at the 3-year revenue projection from the town. And it clearly don't have it, but it would be nice to have that because it does aid us in our budget development process. Thank you.
I think that's it. No further discussion. With that, Mr. Pearson, I don't know if you want to motion to close your meeting.
I entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:31.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Coward and the school committee.
Budget consideration, at least in my mind.
Moving on to agenda item D1. Regularly scheduled meeting dates and times of the council for 2023 to be set. This is on page 5 of 7 of your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve the 2023 meeting schedule?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley,
Second.
second by Councilman Pasqua. Discussion? Solicitor Angel?
Madam President, are there times set for those particular dates?
That's a great point. I know in the past, it's kind of not really been a determinate time all of the time. So if council members want to throw out their preferences for the time that these would traditionally meet, I would appreciate that. Councilor Ludwig?
I'm usually in Boston on Tuesdays. Today's an exception. It's the holiday season, but I'm usually there. So if we could do it at 6:30. I can make sure to take a 4:30 train home. If possible.
Okay. Any further discussion on terms of time from anybody?
I don't know.
Just one day.
Yes.
I just want to ask, is now the appropriate time to also possibly amend one or two of these dates? Like I see December 26th on here.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I'll accept amendments at this time.
So should we do them all at once? Because I think there might be 1 or 2 days on here. So I'll ask to.
You can do all your amendments together.
Okay, so I'll I'll request to amend the town council meeting schedule that's presented in the packet to the following dates, December 26, 2023. To the 19th. Could we do that? The 19th of December?
Mhm.
And then the February 14th meeting. And clearly this isn't for me. This is for my counselors who have significant others with birthdays and et cetera on the 14th. Do we want to just do 1 week later on the 21st?
That works.
That's fine.
Oh, and that's a holiday, actually. That's the day after the holiday. Is that still okay?
The 24th might be the day after a holiday too in January, the 8th of August. I think a lot of them are going to fall right after a holiday this year, but I'm not
Okay.
positive. So,
So we'll do 21st, and then if for some reason a majority can't make it, we can reschedule. Okay, so the amendment from the 14th of January to the 21st of January.
Mhm.
I think February.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Any other amendments from Council Ludwig? Any further? Okay. So we have Council Ludwig, if you could just make it in the sense of a formal motion for
Sure.
the
So
amendment.
I'll make a motion to amend the town council meeting schedule for 2023 to start at 6:30 with the following amended dates: from February 14th, change that to the 21st, and December 26th, change that to the 19th, the week before.
Thank you. Motion from Councilor Ludwig. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Vice President LeBlanc. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
We're now back to the original motion, approving the calendar. I see here that we've put the 2 meetings in July and 2 in August. I know traditionally we haven't done that. I don't know if the council has any comments they'd like to make there. I think in the 2 years we've been here as a council, we've met twice anyway in those months. So I maybe we defer to keep them and then go from there. Okay. Very true. Any further discussion on the calendar as amended? We'll now move on to back to the main motion for a vote. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yeah.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Moving on to item D2, budget meeting dates and times of the council for 2023 to be set. It's on page 6 and 7 of our packets. Do I have a motion to approve the calendar?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion? Vice President LeBlanc.
I just have 4 changes or suggested changes. First one being just strike December 12th since it already occurred. The second, it says Wednesday, May 12th, but I believe that's a Friday. It says Monday, May 17th, but I believe that's a Wednesday. And then it says passed and adopted this 12th, just change it to 20th.
I'm sorry, after Friday, May 12th, can you?
It says Monday, May 17th, but I believe that's a Wednesday. And then where it says passed and adopted this 12th day, it should be 20th.
Ms. Amatrano, do those day of the week changes affect anything, or those corrections? Okay. I don't know if it conflicts with anything. Okay. Any additional discussion or amendments? Councilor Ludwig?
So I couldn't tell, like, we did those additional public hearings in the previous years. Does this already have it on there? Because you say.
Yes, I
Okay.
believe it's on
Is
the
it?
second page, Tuesday, May 23rd and Saturday, May
You
27th.
got it.
Okay, so
All right, that's what I wasn't clear on. These are additional in addition to what the charter requests. Okay, I'm all set.
Madam President, did you set a time for those as well?
Yeah, we should set a time. Just do the 6:30 for now. For both of the public hearings, May 23rd and May 27th. Oh, I'm sorry. Saturday, May 27th was 10 a.m. Yes. Okay. Any further discussion on or further amendments? Vice President Blank, do we have a motion for your amendments?
I'll make a formal motion for the 4 amendments that I had, which was striking December 12th, changing Wednesday, May 12th to Friday, changing Monday, May 17th to Wednesday, and changing where it says passed and adopted to 20th.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Pasqua. Any further discussion?
I just don't know if we need to add the times as well. It was 6:30 for the regular meetings and then 10 a.m. for the Saturdays.
I'll accept those as friendly.
Okay.
Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
We're now back to the main motion. Any further discussion on the amended calendar? Excuse me. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Jennifer Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Can I make a motion to move F, public comment, to before the executive session?
We have a motion to
Second
move
motion.
public comment ahead of executive session and from Councilmember Shockley, second from Councilor Ludwig. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councilmember Lima.
Yes.
I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. Getting tired. Councilmember Ludwig
Yes.
and Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
We'll now open up public comment. Are there anyone here in council chambers who'd like to make public comment? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Just put the mic on for us. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keith Taylor and I live at 1 Haywood Road in Coventry, Rhode Island. I'm here to discuss an issue that has taken place some 2 years ago with the former superintendent of school. I have in my possession a thumb drive that shows a misallegation of funds from the Feinstein account for personal use, along with other accounts. It's unfortunate that the school committee was let off the hook to walk out the door. They should have been here to hear this because the president of the town of the school committee was part of that issue. He was fully aware of what took place. Mrs. Patino, the former president of the school committee, withheld pertinent information from the public through an investigation and the sizing up of the superintendent through an evaluation. She hid it. And that's exactly what she did. And in doing so, she then violated the oath that she took to the people of this community, along with the other members, prior members. This has been going on for quite some time. And I do have proof of it. I have that thumb drive in my pocket right now. I reviewed all of this. And I can assure you that when we look at the 2 prior superintendents of school and you see how their budgets were very similar in their expenses, and you look at Mr. Levis's expenses, you have to ask yourself, what is this all about? We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars here. We're also talking about $1.3 million in legal fees that come out of the taxpayers' dollars because we're sending it to the school committee. This is what we're doing. And it's being hidden. Now, anyone who knows me knows I don't come here just to throw allegations out there. I don't do that. Mr. LeBlanc has known me for quite some time. He knows I don't say anything unless I know exactly what it is I'm addressing and what I'm saying. This has to be addressed, and we need to look at this. It should not go unseen, and it needs to be rectified, and it should be addressed by this council. You still have a responsibility to the people of this community. You are servants of this community, regardless of how you want to view it. That's what you are. You took an oath to them. You told them you'd do what was right by them. I'm here to tell you this took place. It's that simple. It's in your hand now. I leave it up to you to decide whether or not you're ready to take a look at this and really have a good vested interest in it or not. That's it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other members of the public here in chambers tonight would like to speak? Any members on Zoom? Please let them in. Please state your name and address for the record, please. Shows she's unmuted now. The TV just needs to be turned up. Mrs. Dixon, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you. Please proceed. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Ann Dixon, 141 Perry Hill Road. I've listened to all the charges this evening, and I believe that a suspension for 45 days is a disruption and puts the town on hold for at least 45 days or more. With the loss of a finance director and deputy finance director, there will be issues with budget preparation and with the budget preparation for the school improvement project. I expect there will be a rolling delay for financial reporting, and there is no clear description of how this investigation will take place. Mr. Marchant has listed his short list of accomplishments, and we all know that the council put as his priority the budget and passing the budget, which was done. And then it asked him to engage in and facilitate strategic planning. That was done too. We also asked the town manager to do RFPs so that we could do better planning, which was a good insight on the part of the council. So we did a performance audit, we did a street scan, etc. Every time we got recommendations, there was always a challenge: resources, time, people, and money. That has always been a frustration, and it has always been a stumbling block for the council and the town. Yes, I agree. Reporting has been a frustration for me when I was on the council and for all the members of the council. But the message has always been consistent, especially with financial reporting: a lack of resources, time, people, and money. The accountability for some of these issues has been placed on the town manager. And I hope that during the investigation that you will look also at the accountability of the council members, including myself. We are responsible, or we were responsible, in providing resources so the town manager was able to be concerned with the operations of the town, and we did not do that. There was also a slowness on the part of the council in decision-making with the tabling of agenda items week after week after week. So I'm recommending that there be, one, a clear description of the investigation process with timely updates to the public during public meetings. This is not a town council issue only. It is a whole town issue. Our vision as town people, community members, is important. We also need a clear vision for solving the resource issues. Changing leadership is not the solution. What happens next? And how will the town council approach the resource issues? Because if it's a stumbling block for this manager and this council, it will be a stumbling block for every single person you put in a leadership position. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members on Zoom who would like to make a public comment? Last call for public comment, going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. Moving on to executive session. Executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2, relitigation involving the Center of New England Retail Development, and more particularly Nicholas E. Cambio, trustee, via Commerce Park Realty LLC, CA number PM 2013-0350, and Matthew J. McGowan as and only as receiver for Commerce Park Realty LLC, via Commerce Park Management LLC, CA number PM 2013-5001. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second the motion.
second by Councilor Ludwig. Any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
we will now convene an executive session. Can I have a motion to adjourn executive session? Oh, sorry. Can I have a motion to exit or come out of executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? I'll take the roll. Councilman Pasqua?
Yes.
Councilor Ludwig?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Yes.
President Lima? Yes. 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. The town council met in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law re-litigation revolving the Center of New England Retail Development, and more particularly Nicholas E. Cambio, trustee et al. V. Commerce Park Realty LLC et al. CA number PM 2013-0350, and Matthew J. McGowan as and only as receiver for Commerce Park Realty LLC et al. V. Commerce Park Management LLC, CA number PM 2013-5001. A vote was taken in executive session to enter an order that terminates the receivership. I'll ask the stenographer to repeat back the vote.
In the actual motion on the order.
And the motion and the vote.
Just one moment, please.
Yep.
Motion made by Mr. LeBlanc. Motion made by Mr. LeBlanc. Motion is to approve the draft order providing termination of the receivership proceedings to authorize me, Mr. Angel, to sign as solicitor on behalf of the town. And I think the balance of your motion was to allocate receipt of funds when they come to the town as they were expressed in the termination order, and seconded by Ms. Ludwig.
Thank you. I'll now ask for a motion to seal the minutes of executive. Sorry.
What was the vote on the?
Sorry.
motion executive
The vote was
session?
5-0 to approve.
Okay.
Mr. Angel, did you want to elaborate further before moving on?
No, the only thing I wanted to say for the record, so that the public is clear, the order itself will not remain private. When the draft order is finalized, which should be within a week, I would imagine, or days, I will sign it as well as the other 3 other creditors, and it will be entered by the court. When it is entered by the court, it will then be a public document that anyone can, certainly when I get notice that it's been entered, the Odyssey filing system for the court, for the judiciary will inform me of that. We will download it, and I will send it to the council members, and I'll send it to the clerk so she has it for the record. The council can do it if it pleases at that time. You know, certainly it can then be discussed in open session as well.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll take a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Jonathan Pasqua.
Yes.
Jennifer Ludwig.
Yes.
Kimberly Shockley.
Yes.
Jamie LeBlanc.
Yes.
Larry Lima. Yes. 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. I'll now take a motion to adjourn at 9:28 p.m.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc.
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Shockley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. We are